How you doing, huh? What's going on over here? Shalom Aleichem. Salamu Alaikum. Peace be upon you for the uncultured viewers, just to make sure I'm including everybody. So, I'm doing this video for one reason only. Because yes, who's that? It's that guy. The guy that's been contacting everybody under the sun, pleading for help, getting ignored left and right. The guy who's been hoping for some kind of empathy from people, getting nothing, sheer silence left and right. And I wanted to do a follow-up video to a video I made in early December where I had like a 13-minute emotional breakdown in my car shortly after I got denied for the first time by the California Supreme Court, right? Now, you saw that video, explains all the context, what I had to go through in the last 7 to 8 years, how I went from, sheer silence and withdrawal from the entertainment industry after years of hundreds of opportunities that just fizzled into thin air, being with representatives like Buckwall Talent, Untitled Entertainment, Authentic Management, and so on and so forth. No one had a clue how these things just kept disappearing despite the consistent performance that just kept getting elevated higher and higher and better. Phone calls never getting returned, just nothing added up. And then when I discovered the evidence that I discovered about a year and a half ago, I decided to sue 20th Century Fox and 26 other defendants, being multiple entities, several executives, and several producers. A lot of people that are very well known. It is what it is. No one is above the law. And I say that generally. So let me give you a quick disclaimer. Everything that I'm saying here, I'd like for us to be on the same page so that we can grasp the distinction between hyperbole and rhetoric and satire, which is fully protected under the First Amendment, aka free speech, and knowingly stating a false fact, which can quickly be construed as defamatory and open up another can of worms. So let's make sure we understand which is which. And I'm doing this all off the top of my head. I didn't prepare any of this because I know what I need to say. When I got denied by the California Supreme Court, I need you to know that most petitions for review get summarily denied, like over 90%. However, under these circumstances, I'd like to believe that the Supreme Court should have truly considered what I was alerting them to, what I was sharing with them on the public record, and them choosing not to grant any relief or any kind of actions that would remand it. There you go, remand it to the lower court so they can correct and reverse course with the nonsense that they ruled upon. They chose not to. So I perceive it as willfully turning a blind eye. And no one wants to say this. No one wants to say it. But we all know we're not stupid. We all know what is going on. And what's going on is that there is a widely recognized chilling effect around the sensitive, scary topic of Israel and Palestine. Oh my God, what's going to happen if I'm on this side or the other? How is it going to alienate? Anyway, all bullshit, okay? Because the law is the law, justice is justice, truth is truth. Who gives a shit about anything to do, generally speaking? Nothing to talk about the Middle Eastern issue, but everything to do with America and how it relates to Zionism, if you will. Who gives a shit? What are we, slaves? Are we slaves? Should we live our lives based on fear because a small select group of human beings can potentially attack us and harm us and target us and dox us and make sure we never eat? Fuck them. Fuck them. That is the attitude every American should have, because this is America. This is America. And I'm an immigrant saying this. This is America. But I digress. With that said, I want you to understand how I was able to be this, for lack of a better term, legally savvy. I don't have a ghostwriter. There's nobody writing these pleadings for me. It is me, okay? After I parted ways with the entertainment industry, I started learning about real estate investing. That was around COVID. So before I left entertainment, I started learning about real estate investment. 2 years later, my father got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He passed away after a year and a couple of months. 3 days after he passed away, I closed my very first real estate deal. I started making money month after month after month. And right at that time, because I didn't know what I didn't know, the mortgage interest rate crisis happened. Of course, they printed all that money, trillions of dollars during the Plandemic, and then boom, years later, they had to engage in very rapid and aggressive quantitative tightening to make sure we don't cause a motherfucking depression, right? All a game, strings pulled by the assholes that are close to the printing press, right? Or the printing machine for this piece of paper, this worthless fiat currency that we create, and then we leverage it through government and treasury bonds that is then leveraged through us, the slaves, the taxpayers, the guys that have to pay back this $40 trillion of debt. Yoo-hoo! Yeah, the thing we never signed up for since birth. But yes, hopefully you can understand, before I go back to the main topic, hopefully you can understand why we have war after war, why the assholes who essentially lobby for and perpetuate the declaration of those wars, why they never have to risk their own money, they don't have to pay for it themselves, why they don't have to risk their own flesh and blood, nor the flesh and blood of their own children, but they love to send American servicemen and women to go die for causes that usually don't have much to do with us or pose a threat to national security. But I'm not a political expert. I just wanted to share my point of view so you understand the backstory a little bit. Anyhow, when the mortgage crisis happened, I started having some disputes with 2 lending companies that are actually just servicers using third-party money that's not even theirs, and they pretend that it's theirs. It's a long story, right? When that happened, I had 4 properties stolen from me without due process. 4 properties stolen from me without due process, some without a single hearing, despite the fact that I filed fraud lawsuits before the seizures and sales happened for those properties. And, there's one thing about lawyers. A lot of lawyers are freaking scumbags, just dirt bags that just want to fucking just extract somebody's life savings and then play that game with the other side. And then when they decide enough is enough, now we can settle. Yeah, you don't know all these secrets, but shit goes on. Shit goes down for real like that, But I digress. Lawyers are really just, they're kind of like just litigating little boys and girls operating in a broken framework, a broken judicial system. They are allegiant to the bar, right? So what I'm getting to is the people I truly have beef with are bad judges. Bad judges. Again, not suggesting or implying anything with the judge at the Beverly Hills courthouse. I'm saying in general, the judges I'm referring to are in other states. We're not talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're talking about 7 different bad judges that I have caught doing horrific things. And you should know something about judges. They are sworn officials. They are public servants. That means they swore oaths to the United States Constitution and the constitutions of their states. And they violate it, in my experience, they violate it every single day under the color of law. And then they restrict their rulings. Their rulings are typically considered judicial acts. And for as long as they rule under judicial acts, for as long as they rule in general, but judicial act is the operative term, for as long as it is a judicial act, it will forever be protected by absolute immunity. That means they can fuck you up the ass no matter how much they want, and you can never hold them accountable or sue them for civil damages. Now, if they get caught doing something criminal and you have criminal evidence, whole different conversation, okay? But right here, we're talking about the civil world. And you got to understand, judges are former lawyers, so they know how to, generally speaking, they know how to manipulate language expertly. They know how to misrepresent the public record to make it look kosher and halal. You get what I'm saying? But in reality, it rarely ever reflects the real world nuances and intricacies of how they damage the other litigant when they, by law and ethics, are supposed to remain fair and impartial. So That's just a little bit of a backstory. I don't know why it all happened at the same time and how I discovered evidence and how it led to me representing myself in this Hollywood case. But let me just say, God is great. Now, we're here to just stay grounded and focus on reality. But for the faithful viewers, you need to understand that God works in mysterious ways. And I can't put my finger on the timing of all this. However, we are here today. Okay? Moving forward. 27 defendants. Very, very difficult to serve 27 defendants. And if you don't serve them, you don't have a lawsuit. You can't actually initiate the case because the judge would not have jurisdiction over them. Okay? For months and months, and I started using email tracking through some subscription from some credible website, email tracking, as I started sending legal notices, right? And the reason I knew about email tracking is because of the piece of shit business partner that first embezzled funds out of our LLC and the bank. Again, I was foolish. I was naive. I just didn't think that people would screw each other over like this. It is what it is. You live and you learn. So that business partner screwing me over, that led to the lender screwing me over and a variety of other series of misfortunes. And that's how I learned about email tracking. I need to make sure we can start making sure people can't claim plausible deniability or claim they never received notice and so on and so forth. So I started using that against the 27 defendants. And that's when I knew they just kept reading, according to my receipts, kept reading notifications, kept reading, kept forwarding, kept reading, kept forwarding, kept reading, kept forwarding. And then when I started experiencing what I deemed to be procedural obstruction by the Beverly Hills judge, it's a long story as to why that was and so on and so forth. I don't think he's actually biased. And anytime I complained about him, it's because of an appearance of bias. And that's what I complained about. So just to make that clear. He's a very rigid judge. It is what it is, right? And I'm starting to suspect that he probably has some heat on him, has some pressure on him, has eyes watching him, which would explain potentially why he is so incredibly rigid toward me. However, things are changing a little bit. We're developing a little bit of mutual respect. He sees that I'm incredibly diligent, and maybe that tide is turning. So I just wanted to be fair about that assessment. Anyhow, going back to the defendants. What I perceived to be evasion, I complained about to the judge. The court didn't do really anything about it, and that's okay. So then I felt like this is a public interest matter. I started reaching out to the press. I reached out to about 150 mainstream journalists from every Hollywood publication you can think of, other publications, numerous influencers, foundations, political figures, not asking for any intervention whatsoever. It's simply because this is a public interest matter. I want to share it with people. I can't just keep fighting this alone in the midst of darkness. People need to know about this because I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one dealing with this. Okay. And after a couple of months of reaching out to the press, same thing. Reading, forwarding, reading, forwarding, reading, forwarding. Even people who have platforms that purport to be on the right side of history, not any single person, not one person has said, damn, good luck, man. Damn, good luck, man. Dude, I'm sorry that happened. Oh my God. But no, what I suspect is the silence simply means, oh my God, I can't be associated with that. Who is this guy? Is he a criminal? But what if it gets back to me? And then I lose my privileges. And then I risk my salary and my benefits and then my red carpet events and my bragging rights at dinner conversations and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm just a little bitch, but I'm too afraid to admit that out loud. Anyway, I digress. So, with that said, I started sending some of those notifications to the press, and somehow, magically,